And we're live, everybody. Welcome to Brainfood Live on air. Apologies for the a little minute of delay. It is raining, obviously, in the UK, and as you know, the internet doesn't work when it rains here. This is indeed a third world country. And yes, been struggling like hell with the internet all day today. I'm hoping that we're still going to be able to broadcast this live and sound without any issues going forward. So let's see whether everything is okay online. Folks, if you can hear me and see me, let me know on Crowdcast whether the audio and visual is fine. We should be all good on Crowdcast. Thank you, Jim Beresford. I'm going to try and get Geeta on screen. Let me sort of uninvite and invite again. Let's pop that in. I do struggle to do this by myself. So anyway, Geeta, you should get an update. Do come online if you can, folks. We are broadcasting this live on LinkedIn Live as well. I believe Rob Walker is broadcasting this. Bob Pulver is also broadcasting this. I am also broadcasting this. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn, do let me know whether the audio and visual is fine. Just ping me a comment below and let me know how it goes. Yes, Mike, I should learn how to build my own internet, but it might just take a little while for us to get used to that. Okay, let's keep going. I think everyone here is okay. Thank you so much, Rob. We should be good to go. Geeta, your camera is still off. I don't know why that is. But let's...
Sorry.
No worries. We're going to have to wrestle with it. See whether you can do something, my dear, as we crack on with the rest of the show. Okay, folks, let's get on with it. Brainfood Live on air, by the way, is sponsored by a cool vendor every single week, without whom we cannot continue the show. So today we have to continue. We have to basically one of our favorite sponsors today is going to come on screen and have a chat with us. So why don't we go ahead with that straight away? I actually bumped into this guy on the street yesterday, as sort of luck would have it, and I've managed to grab 5 minutes of his time. So he's going to come on and help us with this chat. This is, of course, Sal Majos of MetaView. Sal, you should be getting an invitation. Hopefully, you'll be able to see and get on screen okay. By the way, folks, are you using some sort of AI-powered software? Let me know in the comments how you're getting on with this. I do think this is the year of the AI agent. It's going to go mainstream for all of us in recruitment. So we better get into this. Anyway, here's Sal. Sal, how are you doing? Nice to see you.
Good to see you, man, again. Yeah, I'm very good. How are you?
Indeed. We do have these random sort of ambushes on it's usually Liverpool Street as well, isn't it? You're always going one direction, I'm always going the other. So
yeah, very good, very good. Shall I jump in?
Yeah, just to tell us who you are, what it is you do, and why we should care about MetaView, man.
Yeah, cool. And I'm actually going to kick off a competition, if that's okay. It won't take me long to explain it, but it's going to be
crack on. I love competition.
Yeah, hey folks. Actually, it feels like the first time we've been on in a while, but it used to be fairly regular. I'm Sile. I'm one of the co-founders at MetaView. AI platform focused on recruiting. Started with an AI note taker, which I know a lot of people on this call probably use. Recently, we launched an AI sourcing agent, and I want to run a competition with you folks. I was expecting Geeta to be on, so she was part of the competition, but I guess she'll just have to, I'll just have to update her afterwards. Sourcing competition, your chance to win $5,000. Geeta will be the judge of the highest quality candidate that gets presented to her. What we're going to do is we are going to, if you head over to MetaView Sourcing Agent, so head to MetaView, click on Start for Free on the Sourcing Agent here. And if you take one of Geeta's two roles, either the Senior Financial Analyst or the Site Reliability Engineer, I've got them both open here. You just plug in one of those links into the Sourcing Agent itself. MetaView is going to ask you what sort of person are you looking for. I'm lazy, so I'm not going to type anything. I'm just going to give it a JD. And from here, I'm going to kick off a collaboration with MetaView. So essentially, what we've built with the sourcing agent is a highly collaborative, highly context-aware agent for sourcing. And it's going to look to understand this job description, extract some additional information from me in order to determine what does a great candidate really look like? It's sort of like Lovable or one of those tools, but for sourcing. And so it's going to work out, based on the job description, and plus it's going to ask me for some more information in a second, how to go about finding the best person for this role. So we'll come back to this in a second, but essentially what we're going to... Hey, Geeta. Yeah, I'm doing you a favor here.
Thank you so much. I love it.
We're going to hopefully have a few folks signing up to use our agent to find you some candidates for these hard to fill roles.
Love it.
So we'll come back to that in a second. But essentially the way this is going to work is after you give it the initial requirements, MetaView will get back to you with its understanding of the ICP. So essentially will play back to you, hey, I think this is what we're looking for here. Is that right? You'll have a chance to tell it whether it's right or not, or edit its understanding. And eventually it will present after a couple of minutes, it will present some candidates to you. So in this case, I previously had asked it, I need someone based in London to host my recruiting related weekly podcast, must be a strong communicator and have strong recruiting chops, plus experience managing a community or producing content. Hung, do you think you came up in the results?
I'm pretty certain I wouldn't qualify, to be honest, because I'm not obviously with the shambles of recruiting brain food. I don't think I would ever be a suitable for a professional type of function.
There you go.
But let's see what happens here.
Well, we had Sean Anderson, who hosts the RAG podcast, come up, which sort of makes a lot of sense. We also had in the list Joe Atkinson, who's been doing some great content recently as well. And essentially from here, I can give the AI feedback on whether I think this is a good match or not. And this will help tune it. So this is essentially the way I collaborate with it, is based on real profiles. Is this what we mean? If not, why? And let me go and find some more people for you. Just going to head back to my search for Geeta's FP&A role here. What you can see, again, I gave MetaView the job description. It went out and wrote its own little to-do list of what it's going to do for me. The first thing it's going to do is create an ideal candidate profile. It's now produced this ideal candidate profile, which is essentially a bunch of content it's picked up from the JD, plus other things it found on the internet about Load Smart and about this type of a role. And at that point, I can let it know either, hey, I want to change certain things, like maybe I'm going to say MBA is not required, rather than it's a plus. Maybe I disagree with the AI there. I can override it. And I'm going to say, yeah, New York, Chicago, that's right. Looks good. And so once I've agreed with this ICP, it will then go off and find me my candidates, and we'll start this whole collaboration. One of the really cool things about it, and I'll pause now, I'll leave you there, Hung, is you get to see the whole reasoning trail throughout. So if I jump back to this previous search for the podcast hosts, you'll see the AI was searching for recruiting professionals with content experience in London. It evaluated some profiles. It then realized there weren't enough people. So it said, now let me search for some more candidates with different search criteria to broaden the pool. And it did this completely autonomously. This is not because I had to intervene and tell it you're doing the wrong thing. It sort of understood that it had actually gone down the wrong rabbit hole here. It needed to pull itself back up and go down another part of the search tree almost. And so this is the first truly agentic AI sourcing agent. Would love for you folks to have a play. And if you find Geeta, based on Geeta's judgment, if you find her the best candidates for these roles, then you'll be in with a chance of winning your split of $5,000.
All right.
That's amazing.
This sounds like a really good sort of offer here, Sile. What sort of remind us again, step by step, what do these people need to do to win this $5,000? They need to work these roles and submit candidates to Geeta. Is that right?
Well, you're going to submit it via me, just so I don't blow up Geeta's inbox. But essentially, you will create a free account on MetaView AI Sourcing. So go to metaview.ai, create an account for AI Sourcing. If you're already a MetaView customer, totally fine. Just use it within MetaView as it is. I would suggest starting by giving the AI just the JD, and then start using that as the collaboration point. Literally, when you land on MetaView, you'll see what kind of person are you looking for. You can give it whatever information you want. I recommend starting with the JD. Once you've decided, once you've collaborated with the AI and you've identified your top 3, you can email me, which is my email. You can get me at sm@metaview.ai. I'll put it in the chat as well. And then I'll make sure they get in front of Geeta. She'll decide who looks best. And that person, there were $2,500 for each role. So that you have a chance of winning $5,000 if you do both, or $2,500 if you do one.
That's it. Get to it, folks. I tell you what, charge. If I wasn't on this call here, I would actually do this right now because you got a chance to win like 2.5 grand, 5 grand. Why not do that? It seems to me that you've got all the tools, you've got all the information. It literally, it wouldn't even take you any time to do. I mean, you could obviously spend time to resource this, but I presume this at minimum state could be something like 20 minutes worth of work. So get cracking with it and let's go. Sal, wonderful to have that offer. I really appreciate it. Sal sort of metaview.ai. Do check that out. It's all linked in the chat stream there. If you're doing this on LinkedIn, by the way, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, I'll be whipping some of these links over to you there as well on the chat. And then you'll be able to take part in this competition as well. I do love a good competition, Sal. Well done on this. I think this is fantastic. Okay, that's about it. Thanks a lot for joining, Sal. You might enjoy the rest of this conversation, by the way, because we are talking about what is going to happen to the time over task distribution for recruiters once we do see loads of agents start populating our work streams. So this is going to be interesting speculation. We're not going to say, it's pretty speculative. We are forward sort of looking, but we're probably not speculating too far in the future, folks. This is 6-12 months down the track as to what's going to go on. So hang around with us, Sal. We're going to bring on a few folks, and then we'll see what we're all about.
Can I just add one thing, Hung? Which is exactly that point is why we built the agent the way we did, which is it's very collaborative. Like, it is actually not that amazing without your input. And I think this is a great chance for you to see how that human input is actually how you get the best results. But anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, Sal. I'll see you around, sir.
Bye-bye.
Cool. Very, very interesting. And I love the fact that we have a competition as well. Don't we love the incentivization there? Okay, let's bring some of our guests on screen and we'll get on with this conversation. We've got a really strong variety of guests to bring on. I'm really excited by this because we've got folks coming in from TA, but all now doing slightly different things, which I think will really add flavor to this conversation. The more different perspectives we have, the better. So let's bring on Dave Owen to begin with. Nitin, I saw him a couple of days ago. I'm going to bring him on as well. Tom, I wonder whether Tom's around. I saw him not so long ago, actually. So everybody I'm seeing around. Geeta, I'm afraid we've lost Geeta, but that's no problem. We'll try and bring you back at another time, my dear. These things do happen on live TV. There he is, Dave Owen. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you as ever. Dave, for the people who don't know you, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure. So I have spent my whole career in talent acquisition. Started out agency side, quickly moved in-house and joined Dyson and had 5 years and as many jobs. And my last role was leading the function globally. And since then, I've gone in a 180-degree direction towards what I do now, which is I get to work as a TA strategy and transformation consultant, which sounds way funner than it feels on certain days. But ultimately, I get to work with companies to navigate complex TA and, broadly speaking, workforce change and transformation. And I also get to advise a couple of TA tech startups in Pop and HackerJob, which I love to do as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And 2 good friends of ours of Brainfood as well, but a great UK companies. Fantastic to see UK recruitment tech do great stuff. It's a fantastic day. Thanks for joining. We have Nitin Moorjani as well. Nitin, good to see you, sir. It hasn't been that long since we caught up. I think it was IHR a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? Why don't you quickly introduce yourself, mate? Who are you? What it is you do?
Awesome. So hi everyone. I'm Nitin. I'm from London originally. I've been in TA and the tech space for over a decade, building high growth scale ups and enterprise companies in kind of different leadership and IT type roles. Most recently, I've been leading the charge in building TA infrastructure and thinking about how to enable AI in the best kind of way possible, but also working on a lot of process automation and previously worked at Automatic, which is a company behind WordPress.com. So pretty much at the heart of this, and super excited to have the chat with you all today.
Yeah, brilliant. And great to have you on the show, Nitin. Particularly, I think you're very close to actually doing some of this in your TA ops role previously at Automatic. So very interested to get your, real at the coalface type stuff. And we have Tom Sayer here as well. Tom, I saw you recently as well. So great to see you on screen. Tom, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here. My name's Tom Sayer. I am a global recruiting director at Accenture. We're a global technology consulting firm. Spent the last 20 years also working in talent acquisition from agency side through to in-house roles, UK roles, EMEA roles, now global roles. And I suppose the focus today of my work is really around how we start to transform what we're doing from a recruiting perspective using AI, agents, automation, all of this sort of stuff, and how that impacts the role of the recruiter in the future.
Yeah, really interesting and great to get your perspective from consultancy, and also for the fact that you're doing it's almost a dual role, isn't it? The consultancy wider, but also internally as well. Folks, we've probably got the best experts about to talk about this topic right here. So let's get into it. I've put it out there to say 2025 is the year that AI agents get into the mainstream in the recruitment workflow. Do we all agree with that statement, or does anyone have a contention against that? Again, I'm just speculating, and I'm the person least expert here because I'm distant from it. So, but I think that's the case. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I mean, we've seen exponential growth in AI this year specifically, but I'd also have to add that many people in the industry are very new to this, and I think there's different cycles of adoption, right? Like different TA teams are still learning about it, and I think that's perfectly okay. This is not a race. It's just about understanding, what are the things that AI can do, these agents can do. Some of the things that Metavu shared earlier, like that's an example of that. But kind of learning about it, I think, is the way to go about it.
Yeah, fantastic. Any thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, so I mean, I think even 6 months ago, I remember sitting down and thinking, I really want to try and guess as to whether this is going to happen. And I took some kind of truths that you could take for with a fair degree of certainty, and then project them out over an infinite timeline and think, what might it look like visually and process wise? And only 6 months on, I think the question is now not about if and what they will do, but it's moved into when will they and should they, which are far more interesting questions for us to answer. But I agree with Nitin. Many, definitely most companies are still finding automation, which is not the same thing. And that's fine, because I think there's still a huge amount of value to be derived from that functionality as well. So yeah, the maturity levels are hugely varied, but it's really exciting to be able to say with a fair degree of confidence that it is now on the doorstep, as opposed to an abstract idea that we were all fairly sure about.
Yeah, fantastic. And folks, if you are one of these on that sort of lower end of the maturity curve, don't feel bad about it. I am right there with you. Folks, I'm right there with you. I've got no automation in my system. I use ChatGPT a few times, review some text. I don't really use it. So I'm with you. Don't feel bad. There's reasons why it's slow to adopt. I've got some theories as to why that will be the case. But we're starting to see these things being delivered into our inboxes, into our workflows, and it's a really exciting time. Tom, your thoughts on this? AI agents in 2025, is this the year when it goes mainstream for us in recruiting?
I would piggyback off what Dave said there about, I think, defining what we mean in each of these different spaces. I think there's RPA, there's AI, and then there's agents. And I think there's three different things. And I think that the way I see it across our organization is use cases in three main categories. I think there is the how do you find and discover talent category around sourcing. I think then there's the evaluation category, which carries the highest risk when it comes to talking about AI and it comes to talking about agents. And then you've kind of got your operations, your rec ops side of things, right? Which is your interview scheduling, your connectors, how you drive high automation across your process to join everything together. And I think each of those three categories is running at different speeds, because I think there's a risk profile from a legal perspective associated with each of them, which means that in a lot of those kind of rec ops spaces, you can drive that forward quite fast, minimum risk. That includes things like job descriptions, where generative AI has been, incredibly helpful in terms of getting scale behind your job descriptions. Relatively low risk, right, from a legal perspective. The bit where I think it plays the highest dividends, where I don't quite see agents quite yet taking over, is in that evaluation space, into which I'd bundle screening, interviews, assessments, that kind of space, because there are still some very difficult questions for us to get to, I think, in terms of automating decisions around AI-based output, which are going to come into conflict with things like the EU AI Act or New York state law, California state law, and all those sorts of tricky things as well.
Yeah, really interesting, Tom. And it's clear that they're not going to work in parallel, are they? Technical innovation is decoupled really from sort of the values, and because that's just going to go on. It's a kind of technology neutral, sort of values neutral, should I say? It's just piling forward, it seems, depending on who's prepared to go where. And the law obviously is going to be slower. It'll have different, and the law's sort of different in different areas as well. So we all have different places where this is going to go. Okay, super cool to differentiate automation and AI. Let's nail this one right here, because I think we don't want to keep recycling this conversation, because I want to move beyond it. I feel on the screen here, we've got a reasonably good idea as to what is an AI agent or not. So in fact, let's do this. What is automation and what is AI, and what is AI versus AI agent? Anybody want to give this an early definition, just to put it to bed?
It means different things, really. I think when I think about AI agents, I think about something that's really owning the process end to end, right? And I think when I think about AI today, I see it more as an AI assisted approach. So it's more like it's hand holding you. So it's not making decisions, it's not overriding human in the loop. It's kind of the junior recruiter, if you will. It's someone who's that person who's learning from you and with you, but it's not owning that kind of critical evaluation piece, as Tom said. So I would just differentiate AI assisted versus purely AI agent, which is ownership.
You're nodding
your
head.
I can give an example of
ahead,
something that we've done, which is looking at compliance checks, which we need to run at point of application. So candidates apply to our organization, we need to understand whether they need to go through a rehire check, whether they need to go through a client hiring restrictions check, those sorts of things. And there's a way in which we've figured out how to automate it to a certain extent, right? Which means that if a candidate hits a bunch of parameters, they're flagged, right? If they don't hit those parameters, they can pass through the process. So that to a certain extent is automation. I think how you make that agentic is then taking the human out of the loop to a certain extent, so that when that flag arises with a candidate to say, oh, this candidate has worked for your organization before, you need to conduct a rehire check. Instead of the recruiter then having to make an intervention at that point, having an agent to autonomously do that work on behalf of a recruiter would be agentic, in that sense. So I think that's the difference between having automation and then layering on top of that something that uses an agent.
Yeah, really good. Okay, let's roll forward to what we think it's going to do. If we think of the capability of AI agents, so let's leave aside the ethics for the time being, Tom, but what they can actually do. Where do you think that it's making the most impact in the recruiting workflow right now and in the next 6 months or so? Let's go to you, Dave, first on this. So capability only. Let's take the values and the concerns out of it. What can it currently do that a human recruiter currently does?
Yeah, so I often speak about this as AI, or rather agentic products are going to make their way down the funnel. And technically, they will be able to go to the bottom of that funnel. But the question will increasingly become, should they, and how should they again? If we are going to just list what can they do, what can agentic products do, I think we had a pretty nice demo of what has definitely been proven, which is they can operate as a recruiter in the sense that they can run a briefing meeting, they can dissect the requirements of the job, they can draft JDs, they can perform outreach, they can begin to assess candidate profiles. I think that top of funnel 1 or 2 layers is not up for discussion. Technically, it could go further than that. You know, it can arrange interviews. It could call you at any time of day and ask if you would like to schedule a conversation or have a conversation at that moment in any language. And that's really exciting. But for me, again, it comes back to what should they be doing as opposed to what can they be doing.
Yeah, I like the concept of it going top to bottom, right? So right from the beginning, like intake meeting, let's say. And by the way, we've all been using a sort of AI for research as one of the primary use cases. So presumably agents can do that for us. You could brief the agent, come back with all of this information, then come out with a recruiting strategy. Previously, that was high value work, folks. Right? That was something a senior consultant would be doing. Now it's like, boom, this thing can do it for you. Generating a list of candidates, it can obviously do that if it's got access to the data. It could do a rank sorting of these. Tom, I totally get it. We're not sure whether we want it to do that, but it can technically do those things. And it could start doing outreach. It could start, messaging them and getting them into pipeline. So almost it seems that the entire automation could be done if we wanted to do it. Like we could literally take the recruiter out and it could be completely automated.
I think I lean to being default optimistic about what it will end up looking like, and I've visualized what that might be and written at length about what that process could look like. And there's there's an AI enabled version, which is probably where we are now, and then there's the possibility of AI led. And I think the gut reaction that we all have is an initial dread. But for me, and again, I'm more than happy for people to disagree, I don't think the hiring process could be any worse than it is today. And I say that as a TA professional, right? It still takes us 60 to 90 days to make a hire. I wouldn't want to be going through a recruitment process. I'm really excited by what that future process could be and the new involvement that we will play alongside not having to click through 20 results pages of a LinkedIn search, right? So it absolutely could be built, and maybe someone will do it. I don't necessarily think that many people will build that, though.
Yeah, really good. Tom, go to you here. What does that do to the time over task distribution for recruiters then? Because actually, if we think about all of the time that recruiters do spend doing work, it is sourcing. Sourcing was a huge amount of it. It was literally going onto the database and going through this pagination experience and piling through the information. Then it was outreach. And once you had some success at outreach, it was then engaging all those candidates. That's more or less the job. So we're talking about like fundamental parts of the job may now be transferred to these AI agents. What do you think? What's left? Like, what do you reckon recruiters will be doing if we do decide to go aggressive with the implementation of AI agents?
Yeah, well, I absolutely agree with David, and I think that you've got to think about recruiting being different in the future, because it's not about just solving for what we see today. It's also solving for some of the signs of what we're seeing happening at the moment. So if I think about the challenges we face in our organization, application volumes are rising 30% year on year and have been doing that for the last 3 or 4 years now. We now have to get through 2.6 times more applicants to get to the same volume of hires. We've got somewhere in the order of 7 million applications in the last year. What that means is we're never going to be hiring more and more recruiters to do that screening at the top of the funnel and that sort of space. And I think one of the challenges we're seeing is AI in the hands of candidates means that it's much easier to apply for jobs at scale now. Those matching technologies that we've had for many, many years, CV matching, all that kind of stuff, less effective if everyone's optimized their CV with AI. Much higher matches at scale, right? So what are we going to do at the top of the funnel, and how are we going to use agents to help really get that 7 million applications down to a much higher quality and smaller group of candidates who we really want to work with and move forward into the process. That, I think, is the ultimate challenge that technology can help us do. But we've got to think differently about CV screening. Is not going to be CV screening in the future, right? And we've got much better technology using AI and assessment science to actually get a more holistic understanding now of candidates, whether that's in a tech space or whether that's in a customer services space, whatever it might be. That part, I think, is the place where the most reimagining needs to take place, right at the top of the funnel, because the challenges are changing and the opportunities are changing both at the same time. How that impacts the role of the recruiter is too far out probably at this time to give an accurate answer to that. But I think humans then become the differentiator, and it's going to depend upon your type of organization, right? And it's going to depend upon the type of hiring that you're doing, whether it's commoditized skills or niche skills or whatever it might be, whether it's entry level or executive hiring. The shape of that is going to change in terms of how the recruiter's involved. But I think that in that sense, the humans could be the differentiator, because then we have the opportunity to use people as the kind of shepherds through the process and the people who are managing the experience, rather than getting tied up in the conversations around CV screening or whatever it might be today. So in that sense, I completely agree with Dave. It's going to change, and I think it makes for a more exciting future in TA rather than kind of slightly more transactional one we used to in the past.
Yeah, I think there's two paths, isn't there? Possibly two paths. So basically the Josh Bersin super worker style. So I don't know whether anybody's read Josh's post on this. I think it's a reasonable conception of what might happen in white collar work. Basically, AI-enabled domain experts suddenly gets times 10x productivity on everything they're doing. Yes, it means less people doing the job, but the ones that remain to do it actually have huge capability and capacity, and therefore should be high status strategic type figures rather than operational transactional workers. I think that's a possible future for us. But I think there's also another future which may include us being quite transactional still. Like, for instance, let's say we do need to do a lot of high touch. We've made a guarantee to speak to every candidate or something that passes a certain gate. That may involve a human being doing something that's pretty low status in terms of how the business thinks of it, but just to put a human face to what has been a fairly automated process. So maybe it turns into more of a candidate support type role, to ensure the candidate experience goes up. Perhaps that does rise in status. Maybe I've been premature in saying it will be low status, but it would be a different sort of path from the super worker style. So it could be either one of those two. Nitin, you were doing a lot of this stuff at Automatic, weren't you? So what was your brief on this? Was it like, hey, get faster with less? That was generally what everyone was told, right? So what did you do in order to become more efficient and make recruiting more efficient at Automatic? It might give us a little bit of a signal as to what the low-hanging fruit is to do, and then where does the job of recruiter change once you've done the early stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really asking the question, where do you spend time that you would rather not spend time on? And then you sort of distill that through that exercise. You discover that, inbound is a big problem. We have too many candidates due to the nature of the market right now. So then you end up exploring solutions. Well, how do we deploy AI into this part of the funnel, right? So then we can use AI to help us rank, the kind of most relevant profiles. Another one that seems to be a huge time sink is scheduling, right? So too much back and forth, lots of scheduling, coordination, manual comms, all of this stuff. Then you deploy another tool there. So I think what I'm seeing is just kind of the role of the recruiter shifting. And I might be the first one to say it, where we might end up doing vibe recruiting. So instead of, like, you're not doing the sourcing per se, but you are reviewing the agent's work. You then the AI is then looking at the inbound. So then you're reviewing whether it's you're sort of the point of quality control. Are these profiles relevant? And then if the AI was to take a step further and start screening these candidates, it's about, well, have they pre-qualified this profile in the most accurate way based on the context and the nuances of what I'm looking for in the parameters. So I think this is how I've kind of gone about implementing AI in kind of different organizations as well, is just identify those high drudgery tasks that really sink time. We know what they are as well. Things like ATS management and managing your pipeline, that takes a lot of time as well. So building AI and automation around that. But I genuinely think we will still do a bit of sourcing, a bit of screening, a bit of scheduling, but it'll be less.
Yeah, really good. And by the way, Nitin, you've just introduced the point which I should have made earlier, which was we can anticipate the inbound to be highly automated, but perhaps the outbound is less so, because inbound, we already know the person wants to work for the job, they've applied to it, we're overwhelmed, we can't possibly ask a human recruiter to do a manual screen on inbound applications anymore, we have to deploy AI there. But once the AI has had interactions with those candidates, then presumably a human being might drop in later on. However, if you're headhunting for a senior role, or if you're trying to find sort of a hard to find character, I think AI is probably going to come up pretty soon. It's not going to have all of the capability that a skilled recruiter still might have, particularly if you've got domain experience in that field. Do you know what I mean? I can imagine someone who's worked in software for X amount of years in a tech recruiter role, you probably would outperform AI, I would say, even if you had no tools whatsoever. Like you've got the knowledge off the top of your head of candidates that might be reasonable. Dave, I don't think you like that comment. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I do. I think whether you think about like inbound, headhunt, or referral, I think the key thing across all of those examples eventually is that you might not be applying to any of them. With headhunting, though, I talk about we're in the process of getting contextually ready, whether that's through legislation, through the actual ability to build the technology itself, or most problematically, behaviorally. And I just think for a long time, there is going to be such high stakes and such high touch in relation to particularly exec search that I actually think that AI will still outperform most recruiters. I just don't think that the market acceptance and readiness for that is going to be anywhere near as close as volume recruitment, and then most kind of what I would call core recruitment as well.
Yeah, really good point. So it doesn't necessarily depend on the capability. There's a cultural context where that capability needs to play out. And depending on company, depending on the legal situation, as Tom mentioned, that those things will operate differently.
This is like something that I think worries me most about our whole function is that we are so busy as a function, and we have maxed out the traditional hiring process to an impressive level that we don't have much time to ask questions, let alone answer them. So things like, how will we an AI process is limitless in terms of the data that it can process. That asks a really profound question about the 2-page CV we ask a CEO to fill in as well as a grad. How do we answer that question? How do we start pushing the agenda of what we might give a candidate to, convey a huge amount of information about themselves? Candidates might just not accept this. We don't yet know to what degree will a candidate want to be in a process that is AI-led. I'd love to know. How do we authenticate what people are saying about themselves? Right? All these really cool new questions are questions we will have to answer in the future. But my worry is that as a function, we are so drowned that someone else is going to start answering those questions for us as a function if we don't start answering it. And I might be preempting a future question about how do we start directing the conversation internally.
Well, that's a really good point, Dave. But it begs the question. I mean, if this technology is here going to save us a bunch of time, then where is that time going? If we anticipate being maxed out, and I think everyone agrees with you. Like automation and technology innovation almost never saves the operator any time. the operator still becomes super busy, because what happens is the business says just do more, and you end up plowing a larger field with all of the equipment you've just been given. You never have a life of leisure. Now, I'm not saying we should have a life of leisure, but we obviously need to carve out some bandwidth in order to ask some of these deeper questions. So we might as well go there with the concept. Like, how do we actually carve that time out when, you know, I guess we're pressured to go up to the business and say, hey, we've saved all this stuff. We want to pat on the head. Tom, tell us how we create the time to ask these things.
I would love the answer to that, Hung. It's a good question. I think it's experimentation, and I think it's not trying to boil the ocean with some of this stuff. I think there's a temptation to try and jump in and try and solve end to end. I think it's looking at, I think there's a sense of prioritization that's going to help to slowly get the kind of the attention that you need from leadership to either build business cases for doing things differently. And we all know that in terms of driving change within business, it's usually around pull influencing rather than push influencing, because of that dynamic. And you've got to build the case slowly over time. Not that slowly, but I think you've got to try and it's dangerous to say fail fast when you're using things like AI, particularly when it's, you know, looking at how we use it in a responsible manner, make sure we're using it in a controlled manner. There are all sorts of regulatory, legal, data protection, you know, challenges that we have to make sure that we are compliant with in terms of any kind of experimentation with these things. And those things do take time, right? And they are big time sinks in terms of investments to get those over the line, to get things set up, to get them fully integrated into your tech stack, to make sure that you're demonstrating you've got that sufficient return on investment to do other things or focus on other things. So I think it's trying to figure out what are your priorities, you know, what today are your time sinks, what today are your pieces that are either going to save a lot of money or help your business drive a lot of revenue, and try and make sure it's fully aligned with the business strategy, because that's ultimately what's going to get bandwidth and get the support that you require from your business. So I think the answer lies in trying to align with some of those things and make sure that fundamentally what you're doing is helping to move your business forward and aligns with that business strategy.
Do you know what I heard? I just remembered now a quote from Aaron Levy, who's the CEO of Box, and he's obviously one of these AI first type evangelists. So he wants his entire business to be AI first, and he implemented a policy which I thought was really quite interesting in order to drive adoption of AI, because I think he was aware that actually there's a tension there, because we want to get people to use AI, but I think subliminally we all think, hang on, well, isn't this eating too much of my job now? You know, there's an ambient sort of vague threat with AI for all of us. So he basically said, hey, you keep what you kill. So his policy is to say, look, if you're able to save X amount of time, brilliant. It doesn't go back to the business, it goes back to you. You can then redeploy that time as you see fit and then reshape your job such that it adds value in a different way to the business. And I just thought, whoa, why don't more companies have that type of policy? Because suddenly that takes away the pressure, it takes away the tension. You know, if I feel that, for instance, in recruitment, candidate experience is bad, actually, it would be great if all of us spent like an extra 5 minutes with every candidate experience goes up. Guess what? I'm going to deploy that because I've got the time back because I've been able to put in a tool which saves me time. So I thought maybe that's a solution. Nitin, go to you on this because you're actually actively deploying some. I'm assuming, by the way, you've managed to create some efficiencies in some of this AI sort of deployments that you made at Automatic. What happened to the excess time that you created? Can you give us an honest answer? Not to say you wouldn't be honest, Nitin, but I'd love to know. Like, did you measure the excess time, and did you apply it anywhere, or did the company just kind of absorb it and say, yeah, well done, we'll do again, do better next time, something like that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think naturally any company who's focusing on core recruiting is going to be like, well, if it's saving time for the recruiter, surely they can have more roles, right? So then that's the first course of action, is like suddenly you're just going to throw more roles to a recruiter. But we were just trying to educate the business to make it realize that there's other parts of the TA function that also need nurturing, and that because we didn't have time to do it, now we do. So examples of that are employer brand, right? So employer brand is a piece that you've got to really nurture. You've got to do it at scale if you want to do it well, of course. And then you've got the whole referrals program. So, how do we tap into more high quality referrals so then we activate and improve the performance of that channel? So then, we identified initiatives within that. I think one that's often overlooked across the TA community, I would say, is hiring manager training. So whether it's a new interviewer or it's a new executive, or your hiring system changes, right? So you need to keep nurturing the hiring manager training program to make sure that the hiring managers are aligned with the business and how to recruit effectively and how to make decisions for that business. So I think there's a lot of opportunity beyond just the core recruiting aspect. And because I work in talent operations, I try and bridge more recruiters to join our teams and sort of support us with our projects, whether it's improving our ATS capabilities, or whether it's piloting a new tool, or whether it's doing like a whole career page revamp. So there's a lot of that stuff that can be done. So if there's more time, I'd really encourage those recruiters to think hard, and those talent leaders to think hard about what areas can we improve and function.
Yeah, really good, Nitin. I do think we need to have that conversation very explicitly with the business, don't we? Because I think the default is to do more. They'll just shove more jobs at you. Do you know what I mean? They'll just say, great, now you can do 20 times more jobs. And it's like, oh, great. Maybe you could now do 20 times more jobs. But you know what? All of the other stuff, as you say, Nitin, launching an employee referral scheme, diversity in creating a more diverse talent pool. What about the alumni? No one thinks about, okay, people who've left the business, can you reactivate them as ambassadors in some way? Actually, I think Accenture are particularly good at that. But very few companies actually have policies this way. So lots of things that we can do, but we have to articulate and insist on the time back. I think that's very clear. Okay, let's move on to what do we think the job turns into then? And now we're going to bring back the compliance side. So let's bring back the capability, let's bring back the compliance, and let's bring back, okay, what we think we're going to be in a place where we've implemented the agents that we were comfortable with and do the job. What kind of work, the time distribution, do you think the average TA person will be doing, let's say in 24 months time?
I'll kick us off. I think 24 months, we're definitely in the realm of guesswork, but that's fun. I really hope that we are spending time with candidates pre-funnel, even for core recruitment, to convince them to trust that the very different looking process that they're about to flow through is worth their time and effort. So I really hope that we're doing more pre-funnel activity. I think you mentioned before around, these, maybe you didn't say moments that matter, but that's how I would probably say it. The process can be extremely quick and automated, but if I'm a candidate with a predicted, suitability to a role, and I want to talk to a person about my process, I still think that we will want to extend them that option. For a recruiter, just hop in at any moment as a candidate concierge type person. And that will increase the further down the funnel you go. And then I really hope we have things like, candidate experience designers, and those people that will be the tweaking the models, and almost as a talent, I don't call it a talent engineer, but I love the idea of us moving towards talent engineering as a function. So lots of roles that would play that oversight governing role. And then there's just a giant bucket of roles that sit in that ethical, inclusive, and compliance bucket. And I don't think we can begin to predict just how big those new functions or sub-functions might be.
Yeah, very good. And I think it's almost like if we visualize it, we're kind of stepping above, we're looking at it at a systems person now. So a person who's looking at the entire system, your application of effort is towards that system rather than at that task level where, you know what, the job is just to pound through, you know, these 10 pages of, you know, 100 candidate records and select which ones are going to be suitable for you. Very good. Tom, what are your thoughts on this? How does the recruiter job look like in 2 years' time?
Well, I agree with Dave. I think, you know, there's lots of reports to suggest there's going to be a skills gap in the market. And I think in order to address that, you're going to have to spend a lot more time pre-funnel, engaging candidates in the market. And again, to Dave's point, if we've got high automation and agents in terms of that evaluation process, where is the human touch within that to maintain engagement and make sure that candidates have a human point of contact in an organization. So I think that plays a part in it. I think for me, looking at it from my position, this won't be the same for all organizations. But if you're looking at it from a global corporate perspective, where we have, you know, at the moment, thousands of recruiters around the world, we recruit hundreds plus thousand people every year. You know, we are inevitably going to be governed by quite strict criteria around compliance, and you know, we will adopt GDPR and the EU AI Act as global standards. So it's not like we can pick and choose, depending upon local legal standards, what we implement and the rules that we follow within that. So we're always going to be held to those sorts of standards. I think that what I see is my team and I, in terms of, you know, from a COE perspective, developing these tools, developing these experiments and putting them into market. But in order to do that, there's a huge amount of back-end configuration that needs to be done. We have to work alongside responsible AI teams, responsible assessments teams to do things like job analysis, make sure we've got the right legal defensibility in place, so that if we are going to be using assessments for screen in, screen out evaluation criteria, we do have that legal defensibility around what we do, right? But these are all today conducted by relatively small teams. And I think what you're going to see is a cascade of that into our local market recruiting teams, where more of this responsibility is upon them. So if it's about doing adverse impact studies, if it's about doing job analysis, if it's about you know, the human oversight that is required for these AI tools, that is going to become more of your day-to-day job. It might not be you're in the system looking at the candidate at the individual level, but you need to make sure that the algorithm output is fair, is accurate, is devoid of bias, all these sorts of things. We need to teach recruiters how to do that and where to do that, how to operate within those roles, because there's no way that small teams sitting at a global level can have that kind of accountability over 70,000 requisitions that we have live at any one time, right? So I think that's going to be the transition that we see in the immediate future over the next sort of 18 months or so.
Yeah, really good. I mean, this leads us to your type of function, Nitin, doesn't it? The talent operations, recruitment operations function, where, you know, the people there aren't carrying headcount and needing, you know, do 4 hires a month or whatever the number will be in future, but actually you're there to look at process, and presumably a great part of that is going to be training the AI agents. It's going to be monitoring them. Maybe it's firing the AI agents. If they're not doing well, you shut it down, you set something else up. Who does the performance assessment there? Nitin, I'm going to go to you in a sec, but I've just realized we're sort of where we're at in time. Folks, this is obviously a conversation that needs to continue going forward, but we've only got 5 minutes before we get booted off here. So what we need to do is to make sure we're all connected with each other so that we can continue our conversation, even if Brain Food Live comes off air. Do remember, we are speaking about AI, artificial intelligence, but that is going to be complemented by collective intelligence, CI, or human intelligence, HI, as Jim Beresford mentioned there. It is the sort of complementarity between these two intelligences. I think if you can master both of those, you are going to be that super worker, maybe even in a bigger way than perhaps even Josh Burson mentioned. You cannot neglect the knowledge that comes from your peer group. So grab your sort of LinkedIn URL, drop it in the comment thread if you're watching this on LinkedIn, and connect with everyone else who's doing the same. If you're watching this on Crowdcast, do the same thing. Grab your LinkedIn URL, stick it in the comment thread here, the chat thread, and then connect with everyone who's done the same. As the show is over, by the way, you can go back and then just connect with everyone even though we've come off air. So make sure you do that. Walk away with 20, 30, 40 new connections that are going to help empower you and into this future we have going forward. Okay. Going to you, Nitin, final word, really. Talent operations. I've got to be honest, I thought the talent operations sort of function had its moment. And I thought, you know what, it's probably going to slide away. Now that we're no longer sort of in that, war for talent mode where we're just trying to crash in as many candidates, battling away for candidates. I thought candidate surge comes in, okay, talent ops maybe goes away. But I've changed my mind. I think AI comes in and talent ops suddenly expands. What are your thoughts on all of this? Do you think it's going to be the dominant role that recruiters do, or what is it the end of the recruiter, sort of say in the old way that does that sort of 360 stuff? What are your thoughts?
I think we still need recruiters because we cannot have AI make people decisions, right? So we need a gatekeeper there. And as you said, there's hiring intelligence, which I think recruiters should leverage more because they'll have intelligence about conversations, about themes, about pipelines, about inbound quality. There's all these insights that you can more strategically position when you talk to your hiring teams. So there's definitely that opportunity for a recruiter. I agree with you. Talent operations has never been more important than it has now. And one of the biggest kind of things I'm thinking about in the next few months is candidate fraud. I'm sure many of you have heard on the fact that there's AI-generated applications. There's people who are pretending to be someone else, right? So now we've got to think about systems like identity verification, background checking, employment references, and how do you bolt that into the hiring process? So, these are the problems we have to worry about, and I think there's space for both. I really don't think recruiters won't be needed. No, I don't think recruiters won't be needed. Space for both.
Yeah, really good. And on the topic of candidate fraud, I've got a double header next week, Tuesday. I'll be doing 2 shows on this particular topic. I guarantee you both of them are going to be amazing. First one, we're going to bring in some cybersecurity experts. Do we need to start bringing in InfoSec techniques into recruitment? Yes, we do is the answer, but what does that look like? And the second show is going to involve 3 case studies, like companies that have actually had to deal with excessive candidate fraud. What have they actually implemented to mitigate against that? So that's on Tuesday, folks. Plenty to go on there. I think we've got a huge amount of more content. We've got AI agents live demo on Thursday. And then on Friday, we're going to talk about the other side of the recruitment agency. What does that look like? Staffing agencies 2028. How is that going to transform with the advent of AI? Okay, that's about it, folks. Let me take time to say goodbye. Thank you to all of our guests for joining us and sharing your thoughts. Do connect with all of our guests, by the way. Dave Owen, wonderful to see you. Let me know when you're next in town physically. Dave, it'd be great to catch up for a coffee. Nitin, wonderful to see you recently. Hopefully we can catch up soon again. Let me know what you're up to in the next steps and so on. Love to keep track on what you're doing. And Tom, wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your thoughts with us today. I'm sure we'll catch up soon as we're both in town. So thank you so much, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Cheers.
Cool. Wasn't that interesting, folks? And by the way, let's a quick reminder again for the wonderful offer that MetaView has launched with Geeta Selly. I'll be sharing that information to everyone who's actually registered for the show. But I do think here's some two reasons why you should do this. Number one, there's literally some easy money to make, so you might as well just grab it as you can. Secondly, I think it's a really good opportunity for you to get in and work with some AI agents if you haven't already done so. I do think one of the things that we have to get over is our reticence to embrace some of these new technologies. So this is your chance to do it. If you've not worked with an AI agent to date, now is your chance. MetaView and LoadSmart, the company that Geeta is working for, have a competition. 5K, I think USD available for you to earn if you simply hire for that role. So sign up for MetaView and you'll be able to get your shot at it. Do as much or as little work as you like. Okay, that's it, everyone. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week with a massive round of Brain Food Live. So I'll see you all there. Have a good weekend, everybody.